Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the fifth edition of BWARP, the Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Program. This program is designed to help our community attain wealth, retain wealth, invest wealth, and more importantly, pass that wealth down to their heirs. Tonight's presentation will be informative, and we hope that all of you not only will enjoy it, but will participate in it. You know, for centuries, the world of business and finance was dominated by men. But the 20th century ushered in a major change. According to 2021 statistics, 40% of the businesses in the US are now owned by women. There are 114 more women entrepreneurs than there were 20 years ago. Even better news, 64% of new women-owned businesses were started by women of color this year. Tonight's topic is timely and apropos, as women are truly handling business. Tonight's presenters are Starcod and Melanie Denise Perry, who epitomize the current wave of women entrepreneurs. Starcod is a business coach and strategist. A product of immigrant parents in South Central LA, Star decided education would be her way to success. She earned a bachelor's degree in business administration from Cal State Dominguez and an MBA from Mount St. Mary's College. With corporate success on her resume, today she is a successful entrepreneur and business coach with 2 brick-and-mortar hair accessory stores and a passion to motivate women to leverage audience building and sales via platforms like Facebook and Spotify. She does all this while being a wife and mother to 2 rambunctious little boys. With Star tonight is Melanie Denise Perry, a certified financial planner who has helped people create sustainable wealth by making wise money decisions for over 20 years. She is now with Urban Wealth Management, a women-owned firm that focuses on growing markets for women entrepreneurs. Her financial empowerment strategies include mastering your spending, conquering your debt, and protecting your wealth. Melanie also values the importance of financial literacy by educating youth and creating summer camp and curriculum for kids and teens. She has authored 3 books and has been recognized by many national organizations for her efforts, including the Los Angeles Women's Chapter of the NAACP. I know you're going to have a lot of questions for these ladies tonight. So in this open forum format, you don't have to wait for a Q&A at the end. We're allowing you to put your questions in the chat and we will answer them in real time. Our virtual producer, Jacinda Moden, will pose Star and Melanie your questions. So ladies, welcome and thanks for sharing your knowledge with BWARP tonight.
Thank you for having us. We are both so looking forward to this and to this discussion. Clearly, it's a topic that I enjoy talking about on a regular basis, and I know Star does as well. So as we get started, what I want to do is to get a bit of understanding of who's in the room. Who are we speaking to? I know we're at the top of the hour and more people will be coming in as time progresses. But for those who showed up on time, ready to go to talk about this very important, critical topic, what I would like to know is how many entrepreneurs are here? How many full-time entrepreneurs are in the building, in the house today? I know it's going to take a minute for people to respond. So you can put FT. Okay, here, I see a few. Fantastic. So those that are, I guess, since people will be continuing to respond, why don't we put FT for full-time and then part-time? Because I know entrepreneurship can be a challenge to just go full out. So we got to have that steady Eddie and keep our feet in the area of additional funds, resources. So part-time entrepreneurs put PT. Okay, so I see a few PTs. I see some full-time. Okay, so nevertheless, you're in the space, the industry of entrepreneurship. Okay, now how many of us are over 40? Put amen in the comments there. Let us know. So if you're 40, put I'm over 40, and if you're under 40, okay, amen. So how should I say for the young folks? I don't know, I'm just trying to be fun and keep it light because this is a serious conversation and it can be a little intense. Under, there, that's a good word. Okay, so amen for the 40 and up, and under for the younger. So most of us are 40 and up. That makes a whole lot of sense. Those are folks that I work with a lot. Now, how many of us have little ones? How many of us have heirs that we have already produced? Folks we've created. People we want to leave our wealth to. You can, okay, you have some children. Okay, so yes, you can put a Y, 1, 2, I do. All right, grandchildren, amen. Okay. Now I should see this chat blow up. How many of us want to experience financial freedom? I do. Thumbs up. Yes, let's see it. Okay. All right, so y'all are in the right space. Now, before we go through our conversation and dialogue here, I again want to emphasize that I want this to be a conversation, because oftentimes when we have this money conversation, it can bring out a level of emotion that kind of hinders the process of getting to the next level. Because we are over 40, we do have children, we are trying to get to this level of financial independence, and yet we clearly know that there's a wealth gap, that there's financial challenges, that we go through the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. I should have started when I was 20, I could have saved X, Y, and Z, and you know, I had this plan when I was 25. I was going to be married, have kids, have all these houses and properties so far. And here we are 40, 45, 50, and we've got $100,000 in our retirement, or we've got $20 in our bank account, right? So the realities is what we dreamed of in our youth and where we are right now may not be in alignment, and there's some catch up. So a lot of times when I work with people, there is financial, emotional finance that I work with people, because we all know that we need to save. We all know that we need to invest. That's not some mind-boggling process. But what's the challenge is getting over the emotional piece so that we can actually begin to implement the things that we know to do. So that's why I want this to be a very welcoming space. Recognize that you are in a space where you're here to learn, to gather information, and the most effective way to gather information is to be interactive and engaged. So again, I want to emphasize asking questions when things pop up. We're going to do our best to manage the queue, the chat, and address those live and present. So again, let me put some context to this. So I've been in this industry for over 23 years in March. And what I have found is that the average American over 40, around 40, is making about $40,000 to $50,000 a year. And in order to, quote, retire comfortably, by the time you are, let me back up a second. So the average person is making about $40,000 to $50,000 a year at the age of 40. By the time you're 65, considering inflation, which is the cost of living continuing to rise, that $40,000 to $50,000 roughly turns out to be about $125,000. Okay, that's the cost of living. So here we are, 65, $125,000. Again, we're going to focus on engagement here. So I'm going to ask a question. Get ready. How much money do you think that you need to have saved up by the time you're age 65? And there's no such thing as a wrong answer, so don't feel funny about putting your number in here, okay? So how much money do you think you need to have saved up in order to live off of $125,000 per year from age 65 to 90? So how much money do you need to have saved from 40 to 60 in order to be able to live, have that chunk of money and live 5 to 10 million? All right, I'm loving it. Who else has some comments to share here? What number do you think you need to have? How much do you need to have saved up? 1.4 million. Okay, I think I saw a million or 100,000. All right. So some of us have been doing some financial planning. The actual number is roughly about 2.3 million. And so again, we're talking about a $40,000 to $50,000 income, and that's average. So I know I'm not talking to anyone average in here. So your income is more than likely higher, which means the person that indicate yes, 2 million, the person that indicated 5 to 10 is right on point, given we're talking about folks in the above average level here. But if we go back to my example, the person that is making the 50,000 needs to accumulate the 2.3 million, is going to have to save about $42,000 per year in order to get to that 2.3 million. Now, rewind, didn't I just say that the average person is making $40,000 to $50,000 a year? But you have to save roughly $42,000 a year to get to the goal. I did the math correctly. The reality is you are going to have to, no matter what, you've got to invest and or have a business, period, bottom line. So with that in mind, when I'm working with entrepreneurs, you got to generate that income. And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to have Star in our conversation today, because she is a dynamic, I was about to say dynamic duo, dynamic lady who has really done a phenomenal job with recognizing a challenge, facing it, and being able to overcome the odds in such a short period of time. She did a whip whap pivot during COVID and made it happen. So Star, with this in mind, knowing that we as entrepreneurs have our wealth starts from within. We are all born wealthy. And knowing that we can convert our inner wealth into outer wealth through the various talents and skills and gifts that we have, we've somehow have to convert that into obviously revenue. So what are some suggestions you would recommend for those that are here on how to begin to kind of orient your mind around generating that revenue?
Yeah, so when you're thinking about starting a business or figuring out, how can I bring in revenue as an entrepreneur, one of the things you want to look at is really just leveraging your own expertise and experience. So oftentimes what you'll see is people trying to start a business based on what they like, maybe something they're passionate about. The mark that they miss is what people are willing to pay for and invest in. So oftentimes you'll see people bringing products to market that nobody wants, or they're offering services that people are not willing to pay for. So that's one of the issues that's happening. The other thing is lack of consistency. So oftentimes you'll find that people want to walk away from their 9 to 5, they want to start a business, but they're just not consistent. And the sad thing about this is they're not even as committed to their business as they are to their 9 to 5. When this is something that allows them to create even more income and revenue for their lives. The other thing is, when you start your entrepreneurship journey, or let's say you've started your business, you really want to think about diversification, multiple streams of income. So when I started my first business, which was a brick and mortar, I decided, okay, how can I expand this business? How can I bring in more revenue for my business? For me, that was branching out, getting another location. From there, it was opening up a Shopify store. Now we're talking about 3 streams of income from this one business that I started. Later on, before the pandemic, I expanded my brick and mortars and I opened up lash salons inside of them. Now we're looking at 5 streams of income from this original business concept.
Indeed. I like the fact that you brought up the topic of multiple streams of income, MSIs, because oftentimes when people think of multiple streams of income, the idea is like through energy, through your effort, right? And that's definitely an excellent way to start. And then as time progresses, you want your money to be able to generate the income from multiple sources. So having diversification within your business is spot on. And then having those different multiple sources is great too. Now, for people who are either starting their entrepreneurship journey or wanting to expand, what would you say are, and we have to get exposure, right? People have to know who we are and what we do. And I know you are a star, if I may say that, in really getting your message clear and helping people to do the same thing through your business, your online business that you created.
Yeah.
So what would you say how you've been able to do that for people?
Yeah, so definitely when the pandemic hit, and prior to the pandemic, I was already like, I kind of want to move away from big brick and mortar, be more online. And this just may be a little bit of burnout from what I've been doing for the last, 11 plus years. But I got into the coaching space. And when COVID hit, my 2 physical locations were forced to shut down. The great thing is I had that Shopify store. My consumers, because women will buy beauty products during a pandemic, kind of shifted to the online space. But I did find myself with more time freedom as well. And I had been thinking about coaching, and it just gave me that opportunity to dive right in. So what I did was I positioned myself in the online space, particularly on Facebook, and I created a Facebook group. And that's more than likely how Melanie and I have gotten connected.
Yeah.
And I put myself out there. I grew an amazing community to over 70,000 women now, 2 years later. And I got in front of people, showed up on camera, provided value, and figured, you know what? I'm an entrepreneur. How can I help others? And what I do now is I help women, take their expertise and actually package that into a coaching or consulting business. So now we're not looking at necessarily the brick and mortars. And I don't want to speak bad on product-based businesses, because obviously, like, I've done very well with them. But it's less of a startup because you don't have to have the money to invest in the products and things like that. And you just can come online for free, build your own community, build your own audience, and then start, creating something that people actually want. And that's the only thing I would say. Like, I have dialed in on my messaging. I know what people want. And people who don't succeed, they either their messaging is off or they're trying to sell something that people are not willing to actually pay for, because people are willing to pay for a transformation that you provide if it's something that's going to give them an ultimate desire or a dream that they want.
And that takes a certain level of tenacity, skill set, drive, and determination, which is somewhat different of a position of an employee, even if you're in a managerial position, right? And so what I have seen and am working on is, I'm a sole proprietor. I work for myself, by myself, with myself, so to speak. And many of us start independent like that. And and we come from an employee environment where we're receiving orders and then implementing it. That's a very different mindset and approach than a CEO. So help us understand the difference between the key, characteristics of the worker bee, so to speak, that I like to say, and that CEO.
Absolutely. So a lot of people are operating as a solopreneur in their business, and that is not going to work if you want to scale, you want to make more money, you want to increase your revenue. Sometimes it goes back to mindset. Like, they're not willing to let go and relinquish some of the duties that they do because they feel so much like they want to be in control of that. But I can tell you, I can't run locations in different cities. I can't run a Shopify store. Even coaching, I can't be on coaching because a lot of people see me on coaching like, oh my God, Star, you're so committed. You show up all the time. Well, that's because I have a team. So I'm able to grow my business by relying on a team in both of my businesses. So if you're wanting to grow, obviously you do need to start by yourself. In some cases, you may not have the funds to invest in a team, but as soon as you can, as quickly as possible, you want to bring in that first team member. And one of the ways of doing that is really looking at everything that you do in your business. Like, just take a whole week and literally open up a spreadsheet and track everything you do every single day. And then you're going to prioritize that based on, the things that you excel at and the things that you enjoy, you're really good at, you can get done quickly. And the things that you don't like, you need to outsource that. The things that are very time consuming that don't require you to do it, you need to outsource that. So this is the problem that you'll find, is that people are not willing to make those investments in a team member, and then they remain kind of stagnant because, again, like brick and mortar, you're packing orders, you're working with customers, you're answering the phone. You cannot wear all the hats in your business.
No, there's definitely a transition point. And I'm grateful that we live in a space now, in this virtual space, where we can connect with people internationally. And I've had the wonderful opportunity to work with some really great virtual assistants in the Philippines. And it's worked out very well. So given the fact that we have to not only change and shift our mindset, well, we also have to be mindful of our environment. So not only our environment when it comes to like our living space, and ladies, make sure your purses are organized. Sometimes, especially if you have a sack purse, we try to find stuff and it's just a hot mess. So our environment plays a critical role in our ability to function well, having various systems and things in place. And being a mom, being a wife, entrepreneur with multiple businesses, how did you prepare your environment for success?
Yes, well, there's a couple of factors that go into that. And partially, I have children as well, as many of you guys do. And my husband, I have 8 stepkids, so we have a slew of grandkids as well. So the house is jam-packed oftentimes. But really setting those expectations with your husband, your spouse, your children. And I do know that there are a lot of women who experience, and men who their spouse don't support their entrepreneurial journey. So that's one thing that I want to tap into. If that's the case and you really want to start your business, you get to start your business. And I'm not saying that we should keep secrets or anything like that, but you may have to operate when the spouse is not going to be irritated seeing you work your business. So time management is going to be crucial. For me, I had that conversation with my family. Okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do. When the pandemic hit, I didn't really we do have an area in my home that I could have operated out of, but I even started like just putting this white desk in a small area of my bedroom. And then one of my stepdaughters moved out and I have an office now. So really looking for office space in your home, even if it means a slither somewhere in your dining room or your kitchen, you need to be in a place where you can work. And if you do have a spare office or bedroom that you can turn into an office, and some homes, actually, we do have a place downstairs as an office. I just don't like the way it looks, right? Some homes do have offices. You need to set your space up accordingly. I have young kids too. So I had to set that expectation. You cannot, if my door is closed or you hear me talking, you know that I'm on a call. And I know with the little young ones, it can be very difficult. So you might need to make childcare arrangements, but I kind of trained my boys. I did kind of fuss at them a bit when I got into the coaching space, but they now know, like, okay, mom's on a coaching call, and they definitely respect it. And there is a process and a transition with the family because there were comments made. And I think that, I'm jumping ahead a bit here, but there were some comments made in the beginning about, how much I put into my work. But I will say this, and this goes back to your earlier point. I go hard. I work really hard. And if I'm going to start a business, I'm going to put my all into it, even if that means working late nights and things like that. But as I mentioned to you, as you build a team, you'll start to free your time back up.
Yeah. So you do have to be mindful of that sacrifice. So you led right into the next question. Mommies experience a lot of mommy guilt because in the beginning, so we have a question. So let me ask the question, and then Jacinta, you can help us decipher that. How did you kind of psychologically, deal with the time intensity, telling the kids, hey, look, mommy's on the phone, I can't deal with you right now. Like psychologically as a mother, how did you kind of work through that or are working through it?
Yeah, I mean, it's an ongoing thing, but having a schedule in place is going to be the number one thing. So I know that my boys get out of school at a certain time. For example, I don't rely on childcare or after school activities. I schedule my work schedule, even in the online space, around my ability to be able to pick them up. So they know that, our dad takes us in the morning. That's our time to bond with our dad, and our mom picks us up in the afternoon. So even just small tweaks like that. I also put my youngest back in swimming lessons. And so that's our time to bond, because he knows on the weekends, oh my God, the weekend's coming. My mom's going to be able to take me to swimming lessons. And so you create these special opportunities for your kids and, provide that to them, and then give them kind of like a reward system as well.
That's excellent. So Jacinta, what,
Yes, we have someone here. They mentioned how they've experienced negative comments from friends and family about the amount of work that they're doing. So I guess, do you all have any feedback on, how can they deal with that and manage that, dealing with that feedback?
well, I'd have to say, this might be a little snappy. If they're not contributing to your business, retirement, investing in your future, then their opinion is very low on the totem pole. And a common response can be, oh, that's very interesting, and keep it pushing. Because you have to be mindful of what is going to be beneficial and good for your family. And outside opinion, whether they're connected to your bloodline, whether they actually feel as if they are providing you with good information because of their perspective and what their mindset is not germane. Because you have the intelligence, you have the foresight, you have the vision to know what's going to be beneficial for you and your family. And I say act accordingly.
Absolutely. And I want to add to that as well. Surrounding yourself by people who are on the same page as you is going to help you get through this, okay? Because Melanie and I are both entrepreneurs, and I've met since COVID. Like, I've literally developed some amazing, what I call best friends now. They understand the struggle. They understand what we do.
Yeah.
Some people are never going to be entrepreneurs, and they don't have the desire to be, and they cannot relate to the level of what goes into this. I'm fortunate. My husband is also an entrepreneur, so he gets it, but he even has made little comments in the past, and I'm kind of like Melanie, I'm like, okay. So I'm very proud of the work that I've done for myself, and I'm not going to let anyone stop that. So sometimes just making a shift in who you surround yourself with and building a support system will help you overcome that. And like Melanie said, you just can't listen to those people.
And I'd have to also add that, as women entrepreneurs are just really taking, hold, there's just been an exponential explosion of women entrepreneurs. There's a shift, right? So men have unfortunately missed out on Boy Scouts and seeing their kids grow up. And that's just kind of been like, well, daddy's at work, and it's a societal mindset. And so now to see women, kind of in that space where it's like, okay, husband, okay, father, you need to pick up the pace here and begin to create a more of an equilibrium. It's just a societal mindset and a societal shift. But I don't feel that takes away. If anything, it's now bringing in the father into the mix more so. If you have that father, that's present, to be able to contribute and participate in that balance and in that experience. So any other comments or questions? We're going to shift gears just a little bit. I know this is a different format for folks, but we want some engagement here. So we can go on to part 2 now.
Okay, awesome. So I know as an entrepreneur, you're in a different space now. You're making money, millions in some cases. And it's like, okay, now what do I do with the money? So I'm so happy to be here. And so Melanie, I really, want to talk to you about this, because I know that generating revenue is critical in the wealth building process. But what are some key things that you can recommend for myself and other entrepreneurs about managing the money as an entrepreneur?
That's an excellent question. And it's like the first question that kind of gets missed. The first thought, I should say, that gets missed with entrepreneurs, because it's like, I got to make the money. Bringing in that income is critical, and everything else is like not even a factor. But here's the thing, it's really it's mainly about money management. Yes, you have to bring in the income before you even talk to a financial, planner like myself. You got to have the money for me to be able to allocate it. But even before you have the money, you need to know where it's going to go, as well as how much you actually need to generate in order to fulfill the lifestyle you want to experience. So even still, by recognizing that you want to have this lifestyle, this financial freedom, there's a few fundamental things you want to have in place. So one is knowing your number. So that goes back to, what kind of lifestyle do you want to experience? So is it a case where you want a private chef? Do you need a housekeeper? Do you need a nanny? Do you want to make sure you and your family can travel 2, 3, 4, 5 times a year? Do you want the luxury car? Do you want the multiple houses? Just basically, what do you want? And then as a result of that, figuring out, okay, well, that's going to cost $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month, $20,000 a month. Okay, boom, now we have our number. So from there, you can now work backwards into the business and say, okay, well, my lifestyle, I want my lifestyle to look like this. And the various business expenses are this amount. So then that means I need, and taxes, don't forget about taxes. That means that I need to generate $20,000 a month in order to live the lifestyle that I want, pay the taxes that I have to pay, and be able to save for my future. That saving piece is the number one thing that's missed. So once you have those 3 factors in place, then you want to exercise the most delightful, joyful experiences, such as budgeting. Yes, I said the B word, I let it out, pardon me. And a nicer way to say that is having a clarity map. So your clarity map, AKA spending plan, AKA budget, is merely a way to itemize and clearly outline your expenses. That's it. It's not limiting your ability to do what you want to do, although in the beginning, you may have to buckle down in order to build up, but it's temporary. And when you have a definitive time in which you have to buckle down, then it makes it less taxing, cumbersome, or tight, because you've got 6 months, 12 months, or what have you, that you're going to have to not have Uber Eats or Postmates or whatnot for just a little bit, or do that less, right? So following a clarity map, having a clarity map, making sure that you are also saving and having purposeful accounts for your savings. For example, my philosophy is to teach people to have a solid financial foundation by using 3 buckets: the DIP account, emergency, and the wealth account. Now, this DIP account is where, since I deal with very heart-centered individuals, very high givers, I came across so many people that were, had goals, were saving goals. They end up with saving 1,000, 10,000, 20,000. Next thing I know, I get a phone call and it's like, Melanie, I need to help my mother, sister, cousin, friend. I need to pull out some money. I said, no, wait a minute. Aren't we trying to buy a house? What's going on here? And I kept getting calls like that. And so I came up with this idea of a DIP account where you would have about a month of your expenses set aside. And let's say, for example, it's $5,000. And then when you get that call from your mother, sister, cousin, friend, then you can say, yes, I can help you. But when you get down to 50%, $2,500, that's your zero. You don't have any money. Because if you actually had $0, what would you tell them? I don't have any money. And then they have to do something else, right? So this is how you begin to create loving boundaries for yourself and for those that you care about most. And then at the end of the day, oftentimes telling people no can be the best thing that you've done for them. So having those type of boundaries is helpful. So you have a DIP account where, again, you have about a month of your expenses set aside there. And then you have the emergency account. All right, so folks, let's make sure that you're not sleeping here. How many months should you have set aside in your emergency account? Let's see this chat light up. So this is a common number. Yes, I see 3, I see 6. Yes, so 12, all right, yeah. And it's 6-3 if you're an entrepreneur. I think I saw this is zipping through here real quick. So 3 to 6 months is ideal. And then 6 to 12 months is fantastic, especially if you have income property. So yes, I see 6 to 12, and definitely indeed. So you want to have that amount in your emergency account. Now this wealth account is the account where you're accumulating funds, particularly to purchase additional assets. So that could be seed money for your business. That could be rental property, your initial, residence for down payment. It could be monies you want to set aside to start building up an investment portfolio. And so you would want to say, well, to start a business, to have a down payment for property, it's going to cost $50,000, $100,000, $10,000. You want to have that within 12 months. So let's say it's $10,000, so that would be $833 a month for 12 months, and you begin to set money aside particularly for that. At the end of the day, you want to have a separate checking account or savings account, I should say, for each one of these buckets, because you need to know, oh, I dipped into my dip account, I'm under my 5,000. I need to pay attention to keep that up to 5,000. Oh, my emergency account, it's under 15,000, the 3 months, right? I still have 3 more months to go to save for that. And then you have clarity with the wealth account. So it's important to have separate accounts, purposes assigned to each one, and then funding a little bit towards each one of those accounts. So those are some of the key critical fundamental aspects of money management.
Thank you so much, Melanie. And I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that. So obviously many people here know that, we are born wealthy, and it's just a matter of, converting that inner wealth into monetary wealth. So you've talked about the practices that we need to do, such as budgeting and saving, but what are the top 3 factors that actually hold people back from practicing what you just taught us about?
Yeah, interestingly enough, 80% of what I do is emotional finance. I am a financial therapist by what do you call when they get honorary? I'm an honorary therapist, because I mean, it's amazing how much negativity we tell ourselves when it comes to money, and the kind of false beliefs that we keep in our mind and reiterate them over and over and over. Some things might be, from our childhood that we don't even realize we're saying because our mothers always said X, Y, and Z. And so we're playing that recording in our minds, and then we might even be reiterating that to our children. So it's a matter of paying attention to what are we thinking when we're thinking about our money. So one thing that came present to me just not too long ago, actually, is how contradictory we as a people, African American people, can be when it comes to wealth. Now, when we look at our wealth historically, we've been beat down, beat up, abused, and whipped and manipulated by means of others building wealth on our backs. So as a culture, we kind of have this tension when it comes to wanting to seek wealth, wanting to grow our businesses to this multi-million-dollar level and bring in 6 figures a month, 5 figures a month. We want that, but our social construct contradicts it. So then we're not exercising the habits consistently to make it happen. Case in point, when we hear the term 1%ers, what comes to mind? Let's put in the chat. When we hear the term 1%ers, what comes to mind? More than likely, it's not, I'm going to be one, right? That usually we're thinking of a different culture that is abusing the money system and people, hoarding wealth, just really abusing it. But if we understand as spiritually grounded individuals that money is just a medium of exchange, it's just a tool. And it's one way in which we can really convert, again, our inner wealth into outer wealth, recognizing that it's just that, the top of the wealth system. And we don't necessarily consider ourselves as being at the top of the wealth system, when in many cases, inner-wise, we are. And we have to just relearn how to convert that into this monetary equivalent. And that goes into shifting your money paradigm, recognizing that you are powerful, you are wealthy, you are tenacious, you can achieve what you believe, what you think you are, what you think you create. And it's so critical that we are aware of that, so that when it comes to being consistent with our spending, being consistent with our savings, being consistent with focusing our time to generate the necessary resources to continue to be able to save and live our lifestyle, that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot because we want to get a purse and we end up spending the money we were supposed to save to, quote, kind of keep up with the Joneses or keep up our appearances because we have to look a certain way because we're a certain age, or, all of those kinds of things. Hey, look, many of the folks that are of means are, wearing beat up t-shirts. And I had a client, multimillionaire, and he came to my meeting with tape on his glasses. I know you can afford some new glasses. He had tape on his glasses. And I said, well, and he's sitting on at that time it was 4.5 million. So it's a mindset of not caring really what other people think, even if they're connected to your bloodline. And that's often a challenging experience because people that are connected to your bloodline are often looking out for your benefit, but it's from their perspective. And so again, you have to chart your own course. And I don't know if I've segued away from the question.
You did good. No, you
chart
did
your own
good.
course and stay on point.
But I do have another question. I mean, you've dropped some amazing golden nuggets already, but is there an investment secret that you can share with us women entrepreneurs that maybe we don't realize is possible?
Yes. The secret is that women are better investors than men. And we're better investors than men in part just because of our nature. So we all humans have ego, but the women's ego doesn't allow us to not be good investors, in the sense that, women have a tendency to want to understand investments, want to follow the plan and not deviate from the plan, and be consistent with things, right? In comparison, how the investment industry has been more so of, where you're going to get this high rate of return. If you invest here, you can get this, your money can double. And so we as women are not necessarily pulled by that. Men are like, yeah, you can double my money, boom, let me invest. Women are like, well, how does that actually work? And then can you help me understand the best ways to get from point A to point B, and then, kind of educate me along the way. So with that as the kind of basis of how we approach investing differently, when you follow a plan which aligns with every aspect of our life, whether it's exercise, entrepreneurship, self-care, mental health, When you follow a plan, execute it, and are consistent with it, you typically end with good results. So that's the unique piece, is that although we might shy away from investing, understanding stocks, like us, kind of abstract, we're actually very good at it.
That's
Very
so true.
good. Mhm.
A lot of women are afraid of the numbers, stocks, and investments. So I'm so happy that you shared that to, open up our minds to knowing that we can do this. And I also want to ask you another question. And this, is where I come into play as an entrepreneur. So a lot of people, they want to become an entrepreneur because they want to follow like their passion or their purpose in life, but yet they don't have anything in place for retirement. What problem do you see with that?
It's a big problem, because while I don't plan to retire either, I do want to, I do have and am working towards building up my quote retirement, because it acts as twofold. One, I don't exactly know what my future will behold. I mean, yes, I drink green juice, I exercise, I pray, meditate, I do all the things I'm supposed to do to balance all of that. But who knows what happens, down the road. So I want to be prepared for that. So I might not be able, what I'm saying is I might not be able to physically work in my business until I'm 97 years old. Might not even want to or have the mental capacity for that. So you want to prepare for that. And then secondly, right now, today, one added benefit of having retirement assets is the deduction. It's another expense. It allows you to keep more money in your pocket from a tax perspective and plan for the future. So by thinking again, I have to generate more money, more revenue in order to maintain this lifestyle, to be financially independent. No, you want to generate the necessary income, incorporate a tax planner that will help you keep as much money in your pocket as possible, and then also have a financial advisor on the team, on your financial team, to help you allocate those resources into income generating assets that will provide you with, in some cases, guaranteed streams of income, so that if one day, I see there's a question, if one day you wake up and you're like, I'm ready to sell this business. And let's say the market is not ready for you, because that's another thought. There's, my business is my retirement. Maybe, maybe not. So you want to plan for all of that, just like in the housing industry. There's a seller's market, buyer's market. You think, okay, yeah, I'm going to sell this property for these reasons, and this doesn't work out. So that retirement plan, even though it has the word retirement, it's just a mere strategy, a tool to have, so that you can plan to really experience financial liberation.
Were we going to take the question from the audience, or I'm sorry.
Yeah, there was one more, but that's okay.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking for them to answer their question. My apologies. So, Melanie, I know that you are a financial planner and you are, like me, an entrepreneur. You're doing a lot. So how do you actually find harmony and balance between your work life and your personal life?
I just realized what you said, Star. There is another question in the queue. I totally forgot.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Well, I'll get to that question, but Jacinta, what was the question?
Yes, in a down market, should one person buy or convert from word to cash?
Ooh, that's a good question. So let's understand this. So you invested at this price. The market has gone up and then the market has gone down. So here we are here, and now we've experienced a loss. What I do often, one of the main, I guess, benefits of having a financial advisor is to prevent people from securing their loss. So when you have invested, and let's say, and see, this is at a higher point, so there is some profit. But let's say that you invested here, the market came up and then came down. So you're either even or at a loss. Why would you want to secure the loss? You don't want to be guided by fear. Yes, there's a war. Yes, we have some, I'm trying to be diplomatic here, shenanigans with regards to Roe versus Wade going on, right now, political, conflict. That's always going to be the case. It's going to make little flurries or corrections, as it's called, into the marketplace. But we have to consider there's always going to be something. So if you are investing for the long term, if you're a long-term investor, you want to ride out the waves and invest, not pull out, but invest when the market is down, because what that means is that you've got a discount. If Ross, TJ Maxx, those are places I like to shop. What else? What are high-end places? I can't even think of stores. It's on the tip of my tongue, goodness. Macy's, that's not high end, but I think people are from the, not Jasper. What is that other, Nordstrom's? Thank you, Jackie.
Saks Fifth Avenue.
Saks, that was the one I was looking for. But if those stores, and I don't think Saks ever has sales, Tiffany's, thank you. So if those stores ever said, hey, we've got a sale going on, what are you gonna do? You're gonna beeline it to the store. You're gonna buy some stuff. But when we think about stocks, we think about, oh, we got to pull out. No. Not if you're a long-term investor. Now, when you're thinking about your investments, you want to start with the end in mind. You want to know what your profit will be when you invest in the very beginning. So you want to create an investment policy statement with yourself. So that means you invest a certain dollar amount. You have certain expectations of what the return will be. You have a specific time frame in which you plan to hold the investment, but then you also want to have some clarity of once it gets to this amount, then you will execute a sale or add more money in. That's the direction that you want to go, not politics or cutting up, people, the war is happening. Oh, I'm in a fear-based mode and, end up pulling out at that point. We don't want to do that. So you have your plan and then you work your plan, accordingly. So hopefully that answered the question. I'm forgetting who that was, that asset, but that's a wonderful, wonderful question. So one of the things that we all have to do in this day and age when our attention is being pulled from so many different, places. And as a woman, as a mother, as a entrepreneur, as a sister, as a cousin, as a friend, we have all of these different responsibilities and roles. How do you create harmony between your work life, business life, and your personal life? And self-care, I don't know who you might follow, but I see common posts and reels and whatnot with regards to how people are focusing on their self-care. It's going to be vital and critical to do that and to have that time in the morning if you're a mom and it's like all the kids are asleep, so I know I can have a good 20 minutes of just my time. My parents are actually I'm going through a transition with my parents where I'm being more not a slight caregiver, if you will. I'm having to fill in the blanks more often than not. And I've had to tell my mom, that she's a caregiver for my dad, you need some time for yourself. So I've committed Tuesdays and Thursdays to allow my mom to have at least a couple of hours to just be in her garden and to get into, herself. So you want to be mindful of, and usually that comes at a stress point, like stuff is out of whack and you're like, oh heavens, this isn't gonna work. You want to have scheduled nail appointments, scheduled hair appointments, whatever you want to define as your self-care. And if it's a financial thing where you don't want to spend the money, hikes, working in your garden. I have 3 gardens at my parents', my place, and my uncle's. And that's my time to be with family, as well as to just kind of get in tune to nature. So find that space where you can just kind of recuperate. Another thing I should add in terms of how you can create harmony is that dip account I talked about. That account can also be used for yourself. So if you've been working 24/7 and you're like, look, I'm hiring a babysitter, a nanny, and me and my love honey buns, we're going to Sedona tomorrow. Get the packet. You dip into that dip account and you zip on out of there. So it's, again, focusing, because at the end of the day, your health is your wealth just as much as your finances are your wealth. And if you stress yourself out to a point where you can't even enjoy the fruits of your labor, what's the point of pursuing it?
Love it. Love it. Yeah, I have a CEO day in my business. So typically on Mondays, I don't do tons of work. I may go get my lashes done, my nails done. So you're so right. And just really scheduling that time in for yourself is so crucial. So I love that you shared that.
And you know, something else I'd also say, like, as you're mentioning a schedule. So on Mondays and Fridays are my admin days. I don't set appointments. Tuesday through Thursday, I set appointments. And then on Thursday afternoon is my specified commitment to my parents. If they need me to reconnect the cable or help them with their iPad or something like that, then that's my carved out, you know, time for them. And then on Saturdays and Sundays, I don't work. I've made a commitment not to work 9.5 times out of 10. Sometimes, you know, if I'm doing something like this, yeah, I'll do this on a Saturday. But for the most part, no, I'm not calling a client and I'm not meeting you on a Saturday.
Boundaries. You have to set boundaries.
And then I don't work after, again, this is a different situation, but I don't work after 6 o'clock. I don't meet clients after 6 o'clock. Yeah. Unless it's some, you know, extreme thing. So just really creating your calendar, creating your schedule, I think is another important form of harmony to create. So I think there's some more questions. Or Jacinta, you're asking people questions.
Yes.
So yes, ask away, please. Something we may not have mentioned that you have questions on. You know, we have the space for a little bit more.
Definitely. If anyone has any questions, you know, these ladies covered a lot of things from money management, investing, to juggling, you know, as an entrepreneur, if you're, you know, a mother. If anyone has any e-commerce questions or brick and mortar questions, how to make those transitions, feel free to post those in the chat.
Yeah, we can, I guess, officially do the Q&A time for those that have something to share or get clarity around.
I know we have some hand raisers. Anna and Wilbert's hands are up. I don't know if they had questions.
Here's a question. Do you recommend clients to pay off mortgage before retirement?
That's a good one. Now, I will put this disclosure out. Everybody's situation is different. But what I would say is, if that's a desire of yours, yes. Are there ways to eliminate your mortgage within, eliminate a 30-year mortgage within 5 to 7 years without paying more out of pocket? Yes. So one benefit and see the couple things to be mindful of. Financially, it might not be the most ideal because you're getting rid of an asset that you can write off. But peace of mind, and as a single woman or a single mother, you might, I get away from the financial piece, and it's like, if you at least have a fully paid for house, property, that you're not in partnership with the bank in anymore. Yes, because your mental stress, your mental wealth is just as important as your financial wealth. So if that's a desire, to know that at the very least, that's done and take, and all you have to do is worry about the property taxes. I shouldn't say worry, focus on the property taxes. By all means. I like to encourage people to secure that primary residence, mortgage free. And then with your income property, you can kind of keep the mortgage on that and use that from a financial perspective. I see another question.
Yeah, their follow-up is that their concern is that they're using some retirement funds to pay off the mortgage.
Ooh, that gets a little tricky because it's like you're robbing from your future to take care of means now. And that goes to what we talked about before, is understanding you were born wealthy. You were born as a creative being. So you have the capacity to increase your income from your talents, from your gifts, and from your unique experiences. So I would encourage you to think of expansion versus contraction, because by robbing from your future, that's a contraction scarcity mindset, because you're thinking, I don't have it, I'm just going to use what I've got. I wouldn't encourage that. With me not knowing your specific financial situation and just speaking to you in a generic sense, this is why I'm saying what I'm saying. If we were to have an individual conversation where I can understand the specifics a bit more, I may have a different response. But in a general sense, to take from your future to pay for, today, although it's like an asset paying for another asset, what's the plan to replace the asset you're taking the money from? So there's a few kind of dynamics to be mindful of. And if it is a case where you're just pulling to pay it off, are you using your current residence as an asset by renting it out as an Airbnb, renting out one of the rooms as an Airbnb to create additional income? So if that's the case, if you're pulling money to create the existing property as an income generating asset, it's a possibility that makes sense, to do that.
All righty, we have another question. When starting a nonprofit, what's the best way to figure out how I can go from my passion to making revenue?
When starting a nonprofit? Well, a lot of times, we don't realize that a nonprofit is profit. You can make money in a nonprofit. So it's a matter of just staying in compliance with the rules. The thing that I see with us, and when I say us, I'm meaning minorities, so that's including everybody, is as heart-centered as we are, we're givers, right? So we want to give first before we have our foundation in place. What we want to do is we want to, again, follow STAR's method and generate that money, identify your God-given talents, bring in the revenue. Now, how you master the wealth piece, the wealth game, is you surpass your initial thoughts of how much you can grow your revenue. What I'm saying is, you want to generate a multi-million-dollar business. When you generate a multi-million-dollar business, you are in a much better position to establish a private foundation where your company is funding the private foundation. This is how the 1%ers and the 5%ers do this. Your business is funding the nonprofit, and then you have invested $1 million into the private foundation. And I'm specifically saying private foundation because with the private foundation, like the Annenberg Foundation, right? Or the USC fund, you are able to have more control over how you distribute those assets versus you start a nonprofit, you get government grants, you got to go through the bureaucracy and there's another word I think I'm looking for, the paperwork and whatnot, the red tape to deal with the compliance there. And then the government says, well, you can only help a certain amount of people doing this, that, and yada, yada, yada. Whereas with your private foundation, you can help people with one eye that is green and the other eye that's purple. And, you can help whoever you want, however you want. just as long as you're distributing at least 10% to the mission. So you have more flexibility and control. Can you do it the other way? For sure. How you want to do it the masterful way, the wealthy way, is by monetizing your talent to a point where it's beyond your expectation. The storehouse is unfolded, flooded you out, and you're in that multi-million, 10 million, level. And it's like, yeah, it's time to open up that private foundation and start really making a substantial impact in society that's in alignment with what your purpose is on this planet.
Definitely. Next question is from the previous questions before the nonprofit. On the opposite side of that question, is it advisable to use equity in your home to invest in the business or other wealth building assets?
I would say yes, because that's a different type of strategy in that it's an asset that's continuing to grow. So you're pulling out a certain portion of wealth. It's a leveraging tool, essentially. And that's how wealth is actually mostly created in the United States, is by way of real estate, using leverage in order to expand your wealth, your growth. So yes, long and short, because I know I can be a little long-winded. That is a good start.
All right. Next question is, when is reverse mortgage appropriate?
Oh, that's a good question. So reverse mortgages you have to understand, right? So the idea behind a reverse mortgage is really for those who didn't really plan and prepare. So it's like, they paid their house and that's their only form of wealth. So if the objective or goal is to transfer, the wealth to the next generation, well, then a reverse mortgage wouldn't necessarily be it, or the family needs to be in position to be able to pay the balance when the person makes their transition. So it's been somewhat and it's good in the sense that the family member needs the money, right? So if they need the money, this is their greatest asset, then it can be a viable source to use. I had one client use a reverse mortgage, but the family was prepared to pay the remaining balance of the mortgage when the grandmother made the transition. It wasn't a surprise. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, what is the bank doing? So as long as you're informed and the family is aware of the contract, then it can be a very useful source, especially if the family members aren't there to be able to take care of the financial resources as to why they're looking at a reverse mortgage in the first place. So it's just a matter of knowing what you're dealing with at the end of the day.
Yes. Any more questions? Now, we had a lot of entrepreneurs in the beginning of the call that were full-time. Anyone have any questions?
Well, one thing I want to say while people are percolating and thinking of something to ask is I alluded to the 10%, 5%, 1%, investors. And I remember I didn't finish the thought there because I got on a roll, I got excited. So I think that when it comes to wealth within the African-American community, that tension that we often experience, whether it's conscious or subconscious, is that at the end of the day, you want to be in the 5%ers, period. Bottom line. The people that are making 5% earn about $140,000 a year. People that are in the 10% bracket are making $172,000 a year. It's really not a lot of money. So when I gave you the example of the average person is making 50,000, that puts a lot of perspective on that's the 95%ers. And we are above that. We have so much wealth within that sometimes stays within because of our mindset, our paradigms, the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, embarrassment. We're 50 years old. We have $20,000 in our bank account. We liquidated our 401k plans. You know, we got a divorce. The husband wasn't no good. We got, you know, all this kind of stuff happens to us. And then we get into this emotional and this emotional phase in the form of embarrassment. And what those life experiences are power for the course. They're your testimony. They're your opportunity to be able to pivot, to shift, and to use your experiences, your testimony as a means to catapult to the next level, because someone else needs to hear your experiences. Someone else needs to see you successful. Somebody else needs what you have to offer. And it's almost a shame for you to keep that and not transition that in a way where you're sharing it with others. It's almost selfish. And that's kind of a harsh way to put it. But if you don't take the step to really get that business underway, to really be focused on monetizing your talent, saying, look, I'm tired of this manager, supervisor, boss, coworker. By the end of 2022, I'm out of here. Set a definitive date and make it happen, and be clear about what you want to accomplish and have those markers. We talked about, or maybe I didn't talk about it here. I had another conversation earlier, so forgive me if I'm saying something that wasn't in this context, but to have clarity of how much you need to your lifestyle and how much you need to save. Be clear about your numbers, so you're clear about your revenue goal, so that you are living and enjoying life today. Because I'm a believer in not sacrificing today for tomorrow, but enjoying today and planning for tomorrow. Because we're ever unfolding with creativity. You can say, well, I don't want to tell anybody because it's still my idea. Yes, you need to be mindful of who you're talking to, for sure. But nobody can take what's for you.
Definitely.
I think there was a question.
Yes. What is the range of cost to hire a CFP? How does your fee structure work?
It's $1 million. No, I'm just kidding. It's not as expensive as you think. So all financial planners, all certified financial planners will have different rates, different fees, different services. So it's going to be important for you to know the questions to ask and and understand who you're working with. So for myself, I like working with entrepreneurs because I am one. And as you can tell, I'm going to push you to rise to the highest level of your capacity and push you even further from there. So you would get that kind of support from a person like myself. Others are very conservative and they're like, well, that's a little risky. You might not want to do that. Make sure you plan accordingly. I do both. I tell you what you need to do, and I'll tell you what you got to do to take it to the next level. So depending on what package, my services start at, and I just started working with Urban Wealth Management. It's $3,500 for single, and then it goes all the way up to somewhere around $4,000 or $5,000 if you're a couple. And then the services will vary in between to give you some perspectives. There's payment programs and all that kind of thing. What you would get from me is commitment and a partnership. And a financial plan. We would get clarity of what are your goals, time horizons, risk tolerance, where are you currently now, with no embarrassment, no shame, no worry, but just clarity of where your starting point is, so that we can get as well as where you want to be. And then we fill in the gaps. The financial plan is going to tell you something that I alluded to today, that if your income is 50,000, you're going to have to save 50,000. So then we would begin to think about, strategies in order to make that happen. Do we need to do a rummage sale real quick to just do a cash infusion? Or do you really need to put the pedal to the metal, get in contact with Star and say, hey, I'm really serious about my business and I want to really move forward there and benefit from the marketing and skills and strategies that you've applied to your business and how you help others. So Star would be a great person to connect to with that. So I would refer you to people that I know in my network based upon the things that you would need. We would focus on putting you in position to own income generating assets. And there's all different kinds of those. And we would focus on what makes sense to you. So a certified financial planner listens to your goals, ideally without judgment, and then fills in the gaps and then points you in the right direction. And they are to work in conjunction with your other financial professionals. So your mortgage lender, your estate planning attorney, your tax planner, not preparer, so that we are all on one accord and working on your behalf. So I hope that answered the question.
Well, that concludes Melanie and Star's presentation. We can't see each other, but everyone, let's give some virtual hands. Ladies,
All right.
wonderful job. Thank you so much for sharing your feedback, your knowledge, your insight on handling your business. Now, Melanie and Star, how can people reach you?
I've been talking, Star, go ahead.
It's okay, Melanie. So you can feel free to visit my website, starcodd.com. That's STARRCODD. So 2 R's and 2 D's in my name. Or you can just follow me and send me a friend request directly on Facebook.
Excellent. I'm glad people were able to enjoy our conversation today. So I can be reached at melanie.perry@urbanwm.com. And as of late, I was telling Star that I am doing a 30-day challenge and doing reels. So you'll see me all over Facebook and Instagram. Through my financial literacy company, Zillionaire Enterprises. And my name is Melanie Denise Perry on Facebook and Zillionaire on Instagram, which is ZEALLIONAIRE. So I look forward to seeing you all there.
All righty, ladies. Thank you so much. And I will turn over to Mr. Reverend Gerald.
Thank you.
Melanie, Star, thank you so much for sharing that vital information. And I know there are a lot of people out there, wanting to get to those 5%ers and 1%ers, but no matter where you are in your financial journey, there's a place to start. If you took $20, and I know that may sound like a lot to some or little to some, but if you just stuck $20 to the side every day, at the end of the year, you'd have over $7,000. I think $7,300. I went to Fremont. I don't know, my math's not that good, but so you can start anywhere and putting some money away. So we want to thank you, ladies, for being with us tonight. I have one announcement I need to make before I turn things over to the president and CEO of the Urban League for closing comments. Our workshop that was scheduled for May 25th, Retirement for Personal Success Planning, featuring Daryl Brown, who's retired Senior VP at US Bank, is going to be postponed till later in the year. But the good news, I should say the great news, is that there will be 3 new workshops on increasing and supplementing income presented in that series. So BWARP's going to come back later in the year with a series, and we're going to be talking about one of those workshops will be on ADUs and Airbnbs. I think Melanie mentioned how some people are using Airbnb to generate extra income. The other workshop will be expanding Black commerce with e-commerce. I know Star may have something to contribute to that. And we're also going to have a topic that we're going to call the gig economy. And within those 3 presentations, we're going to bring back retirement for personal success. So stay, look for your email. You're going to get a blast from the Urban League that's going to give you the dates and times of all of those new presentations. And we just want to thank everybody for taking the time to spend with us this evening. Make sure you tell your family and your friends about BWARP and all the great things that the Urban League is doing, and particularly this program in conjunction with Parkside EDC. So now I'm going to turn things over to Michael Lawson for closing comments.
Thank you, Gerald. This was fantastic. Good evening. My name is Michael Lawson. I am president and CEO of the Los Angeles Urban League. And on behalf of the Los Angeles Urban League and Parkside Economic Development Corporation, I thank you for participating in tonight's Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Program. We hope that you benefited from tonight's presentations. I know that I did. Excuse me. I want to thank financial planner Melanie Perry, business coach Star Cod for their women handling business presentations. If you didn't get enough out of this, you know what to call, because there's so much information here. And you got a lot of information, and there was a lot more information that you need to have. I also want to thank Gerald Smith, Chairman of Parkside Economic Development Corporation, and Brian Williams, Chief Operating Officer of the Los Angeles Urban League, for their leadership in presenting BWARP, as we fondly call this webinar series. I also want to thank Michael Rodriguez and Jacinda Moden for your diligent work producing BWARP. We hope the information that was shared this evening will contribute to your success building generational wealth for your families over the next 10 years. Why I say 10 years? Because the Los Angeles Urban League has a mission. We have been in Los Angeles for 100 years. And now we're making a play for the next 100 years. We have a mission to rebuild Greenwood, the district in Tulsa, Oklahoma, also known as Black Wall Street in Los Angeles. We hope that you would join us in this noble quest. Please continue to check our website, laul.org, for information on the work we are conducting. Again, thank you for attending tonight's BWARP webinar, and good night.
Bye, everyone.
And everyone.
Bye.